Imagine waking up in the middle of the night. You hear a strange sound coming from downstairs. Is it just the old house settling, as it always does? Or is it something else entirely, perhaps an intruder? The sound itself is real, a physical vibration in the air. But what you make of it, the meaning you give it, the fear or calm you feel, happens entirely inside your head. This simple moment holds a profound philosophical question that has puzzled thinkers for centuries. Is the world around us a solid, independent reality? Or is it shaped by the thoughts and perceptions within our own minds? It is a question that touches everything we do and believe. This puzzle sits at the very heart of our existence. We often take for granted that the world is simply out there. The chair you are sitting on, the screen you are reading, the laws of gravity holding you in place. Yet we also know that our experience of this world is filtered through our senses, our memories, our emotions, and our language. We cannot step outside of our own minds to see reality as it truly is, without any of our own interpretations coloring the view. This creates a fascinating tension between what is external and what is internal. This essay explores this very tension through two major philosophical traditions, realism and idealism. At its core, the debate between realism and idealism is about the relationship between our minds and the world. Realism proposes that the world exists independently of us. It suggests that facts, objects, and universal laws are out there, waiting to be discovered. A realist would say that the planet Jupiter was a massive ball of gas long before any human knew of its existence, and it will continue to be so long after we are gone. Idealism, on the other hand, offers a different path. It suggests that reality, as we can know it, is fundamentally mental, or shaped by our consciousness. An idealist might argue that while there might be something out there, we can never access it directly. Everything we experience, from the color of a sunset to the concept of justice, is filtered through and constructed by our minds. Throughout this exploration, we will put these two views to the test. We will start by defining realism more deeply, tracing its history from Aristotle to modern scientific thought. We will look at how it provides a solid foundation for physics and medicine, where objective facts seem non-negotiable. Then, we will turn our attention to idealism, following its development from Plato to Kant and beyond. Realism begins with a simple, reassuring idea: the world exists independently of our minds. This is what philosophers call metaphysical realism. It proposes that the universe, with all its stars, mountains, molecules, was here long before we were and will continue to be here long after we are gone. Your thoughts, feelings, beliefs do not change the fundamental nature of reality. This view has deep historical roots, stretching back to ancient Greece. While Plato, as we will later see, leaned towards a form of idealism, his student Aristotle offered a more grounded perspective. Aristotle was a careful observer of the natural world. He studied plants, animals, the stars, believing that by studying the particular things we see around us, we could understand the universal principles that govern them. This commitment to an observable external reality laid an important foundation for Western science and philosophy, anchoring knowledge in the world outside our heads. This core belief, that reality is mind-independent, is the bedrock of realism. It acts as a powerful counterpoint to any suggestion that the world is just a dream or an illusion created by our consciousness. Realists argue that if reality were dependent on our minds, we would expect it to be much more chaotic and subjective. Instead, we find a world that operates with remarkable consistency. The sun rises every morning, objects fall to the ground when dropped, and fire is always hot. If the world exists independently of our minds, then it follows that there must be truths about this world that are also independent of us. This leads us to the second key idea of realism, the existence of objective truth. An objective truth is a statement that is true or false, based on how the world is, not on what anyone believes. For example, the statement, "the Earth revolves around the sun," is objectively true. It was true even when most people believed the opposite. Its truthfulness depends on the actual arrangement of the solar system, not on human consensus, cultural beliefs, or personal feelings. This idea provides a solid anchor for knowledge. To explain how our beliefs can connect to this objective reality, realists often use the correspondence theory of truth. Think of it like a map. A map is accurate if it correctly represents the layout of the streets and landmarks in a city. Similarly, a belief is true if it accurately represents a fact about reality. When we say there is milk in the fridge, that statement is true only if you go to the fridge and find milk inside. the truth lies in the successful match between language and reality. This commitment to objective, correspondence truth is what gives realism its power, especially in fields like science, history, and journalism. A scientist conducting an experiment assumes their results will reveal an underlying fact about nature, not just a reflection of their own expectations. In all these cases, the goal is to align our ideas with an external reality to get the story right. This provides a standard against which we can measure our knowledge. So, the world is real and there are objective truths about it. But how do we access these truths? How can we be sure that what we perceive is the world as it truly is? Realism offers a generally optimistic answer to this question, often called epistemic realism. This view suggests that through our senses, aided by reason and technology, we can gain genuine knowledge of the mind-independent world. While our perceptions might not be perfect, they are not a complete barrier either. They are our window onto reality, and with care, we can use them to see what is really there, at least in part. Think about the simple act of seeing a tree. You perceive its brown bark, green leaves, and its towering height. A realist would argue that these perceptions are caused by the tree itself. Light reflects off the tree, enters your eyes, and your brain processes this information to form an image. While this process is complex and happens within you, it is initiated and constrained by the external object, the tree. Your perception is not an arbitrary invention, it is a direct causal interaction with a part of reality. Of course, realists acknowledge that our senses can sometimes be fooled. A stick in water looks bent, and we experience optical illusions. However, they argue that we can use reason and further investigation to correct these errors. Moreover, we have developed powerful tools that extend our senses far beyond their natural limits. Telescopes allow us to see distant galaxies, and microscopes reveal the hidden world of cells and bacteria. This confidence in our ability to know the world is fundamental to the scientific enterprise. For the realist, scientific progress is a story of discovery. It is the gradual accumulation of more and more accurate knowledge about the objective structure of the universe. The principles of realism are not confined to philosophical debates, they have profound and practical implications for how we navigate the modern world. In science, the dominant stance is scientific realism. This is the view that our best scientific theories are not just useful tools for making predictions, but are approximately true descriptions of reality. It holds that things like electrons, DNA, and black holes are not just convenient fictions, but real entities that exist in the world. This belief fuels scientific ambition, motivating researchers to probe the deepest mysteries of the cosmos with the conviction that real answers can be found. In politics and public policy, a realist perspective often translates into a focus on hard facts and constraints. A realist politician might argue that while idealistic visions of society are appealing, policies must be based on the objective realities of economics, human nature, and geopolitics. They would emphasize the importance of evidence-based policymaking, where decisions are guided by data and analysis rather than ideology or wishful thinking. For instance, when tackling climate change, a realist approach would insist on acknowledging the scientific consensus on global warming and basing solutions on what is physically and economically feasible. Even in ethics, realism has a powerful voice. Moral realism is the view that there are objective moral facts. It suggests that statements like torturing innocent people for fun is wrong are not just expressions of personal opinion or cultural convention, but are objectively true. A moral realist believes that morality is not something we invent, but something we discover. Certain actions are genuinely right or wrong, independent of what anyone thinks about them. This view provides a strong foundation for human rights. Despite these difficulties, the core appeal of realism remains strong across many domains. It offers a framework of stability, objectivity, and truth in a world that can often feel confusing and subjective. After exploring the solid, reassuring ground of realism, we now turn to a radically different perspective: idealism. Realism sees the mind as a mirror reflecting an external world. Idealism says the mind is an architect. It actively constructs the reality we experience. Idealism, reality, as we can know it, is fundamentally mental, mentally constructed, or otherwise immaterial. The world we perceive is not a direct encounter with a mind-independent substance, but is shaped, filtered, and even generated by our consciousness, our concepts, and our ideas. This doesn't mean nothing exists outside your mind. Most idealist traditions are more nuanced. They don't deny something is out there, but we can never access that something in a raw, unfiltered state. Perception is a simple way to grasp this. We often assume our eyes show the world exactly as it is. What we see as red is a wavelength our brain interprets. A bee, with a different visual system, experiences the same flower completely differently, seeing ultraviolet patterns invisible to us. For an idealist, that's a powerful clue. The reality of the flower's color isn't solely in the flower, but a product of the interaction between flower and consciousness. That core principle, that mind comes first, flips the realist's picture upside down. Instead of minds conforming to the world we experience conforms to the structures of our mind. This shift asks us to look inward to understand reality. The rules of logic, the categories of thought, and the values we hold are not just tools for understanding. They are the building blocks of the world we inhabit. It's a journey from brute facts to a world saturated with meaning, purpose, and mind. The roots of idealism in the Western tradition run as deep as those of realism, beginning with one of its most celebrated thinkers, Plato. Living in ancient Greece, Plato was deeply troubled by the ever-changing and imperfect world he saw around him. The physical world was a world of decay, illusion, and opinion. A drawn circle is never perfectly round, an act of justice is never perfectly just. He sought a more stable and certain foundation for knowledge, not subject to the whims of sensory experience. He found his answer in a higher, eternal realm of pure ideas, the forms. For Plato, these forms are the true reality. There is a perfect, unchanging form of circularity, beauty, and justice. The circles we draw and beautiful things we see are imperfect copies of those forms. Our souls, Plato believed, knew the forms before birth, and philosophy is recollecting that knowledge through reason. True knowledge is grasping eternal ideas with the mind, not observing the messy senses. This is an early, powerful form of idealism. Plato's allegory of the cave illustrates it. Imagine prisoners chained in a cave, seeing only shadows on a wall. Those shadows are all they've known, so they mistake them for reality. One prisoner escapes into sunlight, blinded at first, then able to see the real objects and realize the shadows were imitations. Plato says we're like those prisoners, mistaking sensory reality for the true world. The philosopher escapes by using reason to apprehend the forms. The true source of knowledge and goodness is ideal and non-material. Centuries after Plato, the debate between realism and idealism was dramatically reshaped by the German philosopher Immanuel Kant. Kant was awakened from his dogmatic slumber by the radical skepticism of philosophers like David Hume. Kant sought a middle path, a way to save knowledge from both radical skepticism and simple realism. His solution was a revolutionary system he called transcendental idealism, which proposed a synthesis between the mind and the world. Kant agreed with the realists that there is a mind-independent world out there. He called it the noumenal world, or the world of things in themselves. However, he made a crucial move. He argued that we can never, ever experience this world directly. Our minds are not passive, blank slates that simply receive information from outside. Instead, the mind actively structures and organizes all our experiences through innate categories of understanding, such as space, time, and causality. These categories are like a pair of glasses that we can never take off. We don't see the world as it is in itself. We only see it as it appears to us through the filter of our own mind. This world of our experience, the world filtered through our mental glasses, Kant called the phenomenal world. This is the world of science, of everyday life, of everything we can possibly know. For Kant, the laws of nature that scientists discover are not laws of the noumenal world, but laws of the phenomenal world, laws that our own minds have imposed upon experience. Science is objective because everyone's mind is equipped with the same fundamental categories. We all wear the same brand of glasses. Therefore, we all construct the same phenomenal world, which can be studied universally. Yet, this reality is still fundamentally mind-dependent. It is a reality for us, shaped by the architecture of human cognition. Kant's transcendental idealism argues that we don't discover the order of the world, we impose it. While philosophical arguments about the nature of perception can feel abstract, idealism gives a concrete explanation for a huge part of our everyday world, social reality. Consider a piece of paper in your wallet. Physically, it's a small rectangle of cotton and linen with ink. A realist would stop there. Yet it's much more. It's money. You can exchange it for food, housing, entertainment. That value isn't physical. It's a collective belief we all share. A perfect example of idealism. Money's reality exists almost entirely in our minds. It functions because we all agree it does. If everyone decided it was worthless, its economic value vanishes even though the paper stays the same. The same principle applies across life. National borders, corporations, governments, laws. They're not trip-over objects. They're systems of ideas, rules, agreements willed into existence by shared belief. Think of a nation. France, Japan. Where is a nation? You can point to land on a map, but a nation is more. Shared history, common language, cultural norms, a feeling of collective identity. Passed down in stories, education, rituals. A nation is imagined into being. Its power is ideal. It can inspire sacrifice or violence based on a shared idea. Idealism shows these social constructs are as real in effect as mountains and rivers. It gives idealism strength explaining the human world. Realism explains physics and chemistry. Idealism explains meaning, culture, value. Our ideas don't just reflect reality, they shape and create it. From the rules of a football game to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, we turn ideas into a shared, lived reality. The world we inhabit isn't just given, it's made. One of the greatest strengths of the idealist perspective is its ability to account for the central role of meaning, values, and purpose in human life. A strictly realist view, focused on mind-independent physical facts, often struggles to explain where these things come from. From a purely physical standpoint, the universe is just a collection of particles governed by impersonal laws. There is no inherent meaning or value to be found in atoms or galaxies. Yet our lives are saturated with meaning. We fall in love, we create art, we strive for justice, and we mourn our losses. These experiences are the very fabric of our existence. Idealism provides a natural home for these phenomena. It suggests that meaning is not something we need to find in a meaningless external world, but is something that arises from consciousness itself. Our minds are not just information processors, they are meaning-making engines. We are constantly interpreting our experiences, weaving them into a coherent story, and evaluating them based on our values. For an idealist, the fact that we experience the world as meaningful is not a puzzle to be solved, but a fundamental clue to the nature of reality itself. Furthermore, idealism offers a powerful explanation for the diversity of human cultures and worldviews. If reality were a single objective thing that we all perceive in the same way, it would be difficult to explain why different societies have developed such radically different beliefs. An idealist can explain this easily. Different cultures construct different realities because they are built upon different foundational ideas, values, and languages. Each culture provides its members with a different set of mental glasses. This perspective also imbues human beings with a profound sense of agency and responsibility. If the world is, at least in part, a product of our minds and our collective agreements, then we are not merely passive observers, we are active participants in its creation. Now that we have explored the separate paths of realism and idealism, it is time to bring them into direct confrontation. Let's place them head to head and see how they fare on some of the most fundamental questions about reality and knowledge. The first and most obvious point of conflict is the very existence of a mind-independent world. For the realist, this is the non-negotiable starting point. Stars, atoms, and physical laws exist whether we are here to observe it or not. For the idealist, this claim is either unknowable or simply false. The world we experience is fundamentally tied to the mind that experiences it. This is not a small disagreement, it is a chasm that separates two entirely different visions of our place in the cosmos. This leads directly to the question of truth. The realist champions the correspondence theory. A statement is true if it matches the external facts. This gives truth a solid, objective foundation. The idealist faces a challenge here. If reality is mind-dependent, what does a belief correspond to? Many idealists lean to a coherence theory of truth. A belief is true if it fits within a larger, consistent system of beliefs. Truth is about internal consistency, not matching an outer world. This explains how mathematical truths can feel so certain, yet it risks detaching truth from any external reality check, potentially allowing elegant but false systems of belief. Scientific progress presents another battleground. The scientific realist sees science as a triumphant march getting ever closer to objective truth. We replaced Newton's theory of gravity with Einstein's theory, not because Newton was simply wrong, but because Einstein better describes how space-time works. The idealist, especially Kantian, disagrees. Science builds refined, useful models of the phenomenal world. New theories are like improved glasses for organizing experience. Science refines the human-made map, not the thing in itself. Finally, the thorny issue of moral facts. A moral realist says genocide is evil, can be objectively true, like, the earth is round. The idealist says moral values are constructed by minds, expressions of rational will, emotional commitments, and collective agreements. Each of these grand philosophical systems, despite its strengths, faces significant and persistent problems. Realism, for all its common-sense appeal, has a major Achilles heel. It cannot definitively defeat skepticism. The realist claims we have access to a mind-independent world, but how can we ever be absolutely sure? We are always trapped behind our own senses and thoughts. We can never take that final step outside of our own consciousness to compare our perception of a pebble with the real pebble in itself. This gap between our experience and the world it is supposed to represent is a vulnerability that skeptics have exploited for centuries. Furthermore, realism struggles to explain the theory-ladenness of observation. The idea that we can make pure, unbiased observations of the world has been heavily criticized. What we see is often influenced by the concepts, theories, and expectations we already hold. A trained radiologist looking at an X-ray sees a potential tumor, while an untrained person sees only a meaningless collection of gray smudges. Their observations are not pure, they are shaped by their prior knowledge. This suggests that the mind is not just a passive mirror reflecting reality, but an active interpreter, which lends significant support to the idealist's view. Idealism, on the other hand, runs into what some have called the problem of the brick. If reality is fundamentally mental, why does it feel so solid, stubborn, and often uncooperative? If you walk into a wall, it hurts, regardless of your beliefs or concepts about the wall. Idealism can struggle to account for the brute, objective resistance that the world constantly presents to our will. More sophisticated idealisms like Kant's avoid this but create a new problem: the unknowable noumenal world. By positing a world of things in themselves that we can never access, Kant introduces a mysterious and permanent barrier to knowledge. Given the powerful arguments for both sides and the significant problems each view faces, many philosophers have tried to find a middle way. They built hybrid theories to capture the best of realism and of idealism while discarding their weaknesses. Perhaps the most influential is Immanuel Kant's transcendental idealism. Kant, reality as a joint production, an external noumenon, and the structuring mind creating a synthesis. He saved objective, universal knowledge for the sciences, pleasing the realist, and gave the mind a central, creative role, pleasing the idealist. Another middle ground is pragmatism. Associated thinkers Charles Sanders Peirce, William James, and John Dewey. Pragmatists say, stop asking unanswerable questions like, what is reality really like? Focus on the practical consequences of beliefs. A belief is true if it works. It helps us navigate the world effectively. It makes accurate predictions. It helps us achieve our goals. This sidesteps the head-on collision between realism and idealism. Structural realism has emerged more recently, especially in philosophy of science. It compromises theories about what things are may change, but the mathematical structure often survives. Example: 19th century equations for light waves later found within the more fundamental equations of electromagnetism. Structural realism: science discovers objective structure, relationships and patterns, not hidden nature. Finally, sociology gives us social constructivism. It's idealism applied to the social world. Social constructivists accept brute physical reality, mountains, atoms, but many aspects of what we call reality, money, gender roles, mental illness, are products of social agreements and history. No area of modern science has challenged our common-sense notions of reality more than quantum mechanics. The bizarre behavior of particles at the subatomic level provides a fascinating real-world laboratory for testing the claims of realism and idealism. At its heart is the puzzle of observation. According to the standard interpretation of quantum mechanics, the Copenhagen interpretation, a particle like an electron does not have a definite position or momentum until it is measured. Before the measurement, it exists in a superposition described by a wave of probability. The very act of observation seems to force the particle to choose a single definite state. This has profound philosophical implications. It seems to directly challenge the core tenet of realism that objects have definite properties independent of observation. If a particle's position is not real until it is measured, this suggests that reality at the most fundamental level is not mind-independent. This has led some physicists and philosophers to embrace views that sound remarkably idealist. The physicist John Archibald Wheeler famously coined the phrase "it from bit," the bit, a participatory universe. In this view, the observer is not a detached onlooker, but a necessary participant in creating reality. However, realists have not taken this challenge lying down. They propose alternative interpretations that try to preserve a mind-independent reality. For example, the many worlds interpretation suggests every time a measurement is made, the universe splits into multiple parallel universes, one for each possible outcome. Another realist approach known as hidden variables theory, most famously championed by David Bohm, argues that particles do have definite properties at all times, we just cannot see them. The ongoing debate in quantum physics does not provide a final victory, but it sharpens the questions in an extraordinary way. It shows that the problem of the observer's role in shaping reality is not just a philosopher's armchair puzzle, but a concrete, experimental issue at the forefront of physics. Throughout this journey, we have navigated two of the most profound and enduring paths to understanding our world: realism and idealism. Realism, with its comforting belief in a solid, mind-independent reality, provides the bedrock for our scientific endeavors and our common-sense view of life. It tells us that facts are real, that truth is objective, and that the universe operates according to laws we can discover, not invent. We have seen how this perspective anchors our knowledge. The world we investigate, with telescopes and microscopes, is a shared public reality, not a private dream. Its strength lies in explaining the stubborn, consistent, and often surprising nature of the physical world we all inhabit. In contrast, idealism turns our gaze inward. It proposes the mind is not a mere mirror, but a powerful architect of reality. From Plato's eternal forms to Kant's structuring categories of thought, idealism shows its power in explaining things realism struggles with: the existence of meaning, the power of values, and social constructs like money, laws, and nations. Idealism reminds us the world is not just physical objects, it is a tapestry woven with ideas, beliefs, and shared agreements. It accounts for the rich diversity of human cultures and empowers us as co-creators of our social and moral reality. When we place them side by side, declaring a single victor is neither simple nor wise. Realism provides an unparalleled framework for understanding the natural sciences, physics, chemistry, biology. To deny the objective reality of atoms, galaxies, or the process of evolution seems to fly in the face of overwhelming evidence. For matter and physical laws, realism holds the stronger hand. However, a purely realist view would leave our world strangely impoverished, a world of facts without meaning, particles without purpose. Idealism, in its various forms, fills this void. It gives us a language to talk about justice, beauty, and love. In the realms of ethics, art, politics, and culture, idealism offers a more compelling, comprehensive explanation for these human domains. So, which view offers a better guide for knowledge and action in our daily lives? The most sensible conclusion is not to choose one over the other. Adopt an integrated stance, a kind of practical wisdom that borrows from both. We must live as realists about physical constraints and opportunities, respect scientific facts, health, the environment, the laws of physics. Ignoring a virus or engineering principles leads to disastrous consequences. At the same time, live as idealists. Recognize our power to create meaning and social reality. Societies are built on ideas, and those ideas are not set in stone. Justice, human rights, democracy. These are ideals we collectively construct and must strive to improve. This perspective gives us agency. The world is something we can shape through commitments, our conversations, our collective will. Be bold architects of our shared moral and social world. This balanced approach helps us navigate life with pragmatism and hope. Be evidence-based, but ambitious in vision. We can accept climate change as a scientific fact and still believe we can create new social and political structures to address it. We can acknowledge our biological basis and celebrate the transcendent power of art and love. This hybrid view avoids bleak materialism and ungrounded fantasy, offering a richer picture of existence. Ultimately, the debate leaves us with vital questions, not final answers. As you navigate your life, consider two reflections. First, when you encounter a deeply held belief, ask, How much of it reflects objective fact, and how much is a product of the mind? Second, in your actions, where is the greatest potential for change, discovering hidden truths, or creating new ideas for us all to live by?